All right, this lesson is for Science 24, our first unit, Unit A, Matter and Chemical Change. So what we're going to look at today, Chapter 1, it's useful chemistry. And then today we're looking at 1.1, which is a bit of chemistry back then and now. We're going to do some comparisons. So for example, when we talk about farmers and gardeners in the 19th century, they were using manure from livestock for fertilizer. What we see now is that farmers still use manure, but we also are seeing more and more of this chemically made fertilizer. You'll also see more pesticides being used on crops as well. This can be effective because they're designed for specific crops or specific field conditions. But an advantage of using manure is that it returns organic matter back to the soil, which helps with plant growth. Other advances we also see are in technology. So we just talked about some advances in chemistry, but also advances in technology have enabled modern farmers to produce a lot more food with less human labor. So there's a lot of new technology and new machines that are have replaced human labor, like automatic feeders, barn cleaners, tractors, and other machinery that have replaced horses and other animals that were used for farming. So next, we're just going to talk about what does it mean to be synthetic. So if something is synthetic, it's a human-made substance. It's not coming from nature. It's made in a lab, with scientists. And when we talk about synthetic chemicals, we're talking about things like fertilizers that are made in labs. Pesticides are also made in labs, and they have reduced the amount of work farmers have to do. So pesticides are any chemicals that are used to kill plants or animals. Specifically, there's two common types. There's the herbicides, which will kill unwanted plants, so such as weeds, dandelions, and then there's insecticides, which will kill any unwanted insects that are damaging crops, like maybe aphids. So because of these chemical pesticides and because of these synthetic fertilizers, land can therefore produce more food for the ever-growing human population. Also, the produce, any fruits, the vegetables, they are now made to survive the trip to the customer because of these advances in technology and chemistry. So basically, they can last longer in travel while they get to the grocery store. They can last longer on the grocery store shelves, and then they can last longer when you bring that produce into your homes as well. Dursban here, this is an example of a common pesticide that was used to control insects, and it was a form of organophosphate. Basically, it interrupts the electrochemical processes in nerves and how nerves use to communicate with muscles and with one another. So a lethal dose of this could kill insects. But it could also be harmful to humans, so it had to be handled with great care because it can also damage the human brain and the human central nervous system as well. So chemistry for cleaning. So 100 years ago, soap was being made from ashes from the cooking stove, and then combining that with natural fats from various animals, such as beef fat. Today, it's just been replaced with plant oils. Some or all of the animal fat has been replaced with plant oils. So, for example, coconut oil. may be used in soaps or to make soaps. It's got a nice scent. It also cleans well. And then other ingredients are also added to make sure that there's suds or help soften the skin, for example. So many of these cleaners have also in them strong bases. These bases produce soap when they react with fatty acids in grease. So usually soap will consist of a two-ended molecule. One end will dissolve in grease, the other end will dissolve in water, and then this is the reaction that allows us to wash away grease. And here is chemistry for synthetics, so like synthetic fibers and cloth and thread. So when we talk about synthetic, again, synthetic means it's human made. It's not coming from nature. It's coming from a lab. So human made fibers that are made in the lab using raw chemicals. So for example, there is nylon. Nylon is made from coal, water, and air, and it was first discovered by Wallace Carothers in 1930s. So he made it, but scientists couldn't see a real practical use for it. And in the lab, these chemists were playing games to see how far they could stretch it, and they found that this nylon fibers are very strong and silky. So in 1939, nylon started being used to make stockings. Other synthetic fibers are like polyester, Gore-Tex, Kevlar. Polyester is one that you've probably heard of. It's common in clothes. Again, it is synthetic, and it's a fiber that's able to bounce back into shape, and it doesn't absorb very moisture. So when using it in clothes, it's a useful fiber because it dries quickly and also doesn't need ironing because it can bounce back into shape. All right, some of the natural fibers, so 100 years ago when clothing was made from natural fibers, that includes things like cotton, flax, wool, and silk. So from cotton, there's white fibers found in the seed pod of cotton plants, and that was then used to make cotton thread and then woven together to make cotton material. From flax, stems of flax plants used to get processed into threads, which were then woven together to make linen. Other natural fibers, for example, wool from animals like sheep and goat are spun into wool, which were then woven together to make woolen material. And then lastly, fibers from the cocoons of silkworms were made into silk thread. And then it was woven together to make silk cloth. So these forms of natural forms, they're still used today. Like t-shirts are still made from cotton. All right, so that's where we'll stop for 1.1, and then the questions are on page 9 in the textbook, numbers 1 to 3.